everybody. It's Winter with the Shift Spotlight. And today we're super excited to have with us today Sarah Tourville. She is the CEO and founder of Media Frenzy Global and can be found at frenzy.agency. So welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you, Winter. It's wonderful to be here. I'm very excited to join you.
It's great because you're going to be talking about one of my pastimes. So before we dive into something about what you do and how you do it, tell us an interesting fact about you that people may not know.
An interesting fact about me, I think, is I've lived in 3 continents. I ended up moving to Dubai in 2008 with my husband and 2 daughters, which was very interesting because the economy crashed. And I think, and Dubai was known for having the most amount of construction in one consolidated area in any time. And if you can
Wow.
imagine, in 2008, everything stopped.
Yeah.
It was like living in a ghost town for 7 months. So I lived in a ghost town. That's my fun fact. I lived in a ghost town for 7 months.
That's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
so was any commerce happening at all or just shut down?
I mean, it was like, I remember driving my children to school on a road. If anyone knows Dubai, it's called Sheikh Zayed Road. It's the main road through Dubai. And it used to be like, so 2007, when I first got there, it would take me 45 minutes to take the kids, to school, which should be 10 minutes.
Right.
Because it was back to back. Well, I remember the day the headlines, announced what was happening, that road was so clear. I probably saw 4 or 5 cars on the road. It was literally like a ghost town. You saw all these cranes, literally nothing on it.
Wow.
And you could just hear a pin drop. And
Wow.
everybody had dispersed. The only reason we hadn't dispersed is because my husband, bless his heart, had to lay off 700 people before he closed the door on himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
it was sad. And then our lives shifted because now Tim had to, like I say, make 700 people redundant. And I had to go to work in a Middle Eastern male-dominated country because that was the only way we could stay there. So it
Right.
was like complete role reversal. It was very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is crazy. Well, you definitely take the cake on interesting facts, but we know you're a survivor because you have built a very successful media company, public relations, digital marketing. So why don't you talk about at a high level what it is that you do?
Yeah. So we create the frenzy. I mean, basically,
Ooh.
like, yeah, for B2B enterprise technology brands, we integrate earned, paid, and strategic messaging to really allow people to stop, take notice, and engage. That's
So
basically what it is.
how did you get inspired or motivated to go that route with your business?
Well, I started off at Expedia and I launched the first world's ever online travel booking platform across Europe, Middle East, and Africa when I was based in London. So it was my first, like literally out of college. And it's like, and I didn't even realize how significant Expedia was. You're just so young, you're like, hey, you're just trying to figure out what marketing is. And I was on the team to launch it. And so that was just really interesting because you're launching really a disruptive way of booking travel. Like no one had ever been able to book their own travel ever. Like you
Yeah.
had to go to a travel agent, but now you could do it yourself. And so that was like amazing to think that we could empower anybody to travel. So that was like my first kind of just moment of realization, like, man, I want to work first of all for, in an innovative and disruptive area. And I love it when you're developing a narrative that is literally going to shock and disrupt the way something is done. So that was my first taste of it. And then I went into Motorola, but I didn't go into the sexy part of Motorola. I wish I had, but I went into the internet and what was it called? The Internet and Networking Group, which was actually really interesting. It was like, how do you leverage communications, through wireless and wireline connectivity? But I had the job of launching it in Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East, and North Africa. So I was going into countries which I didn't really feel like I should even be there, working with the press in those markets, like telling this, again, disruptive story. And so I just got a real taste and a buzz for doing anything where it felt like there was innovation and anything where it felt like storytelling was needed to really curate a market.
Yeah, so you are definitely speaking my language. So I studied at Florida State, and I um, graduated with communications with an emphasis in public relations. And at the time, I thought that was parties and people. But really, what it was being married to the AP style guide. I don't know. Did you remember like
Yeah,
having to flip through the AP style guide?
yeah,
And like two things really always stuck out to me about that. Like, number one, there is no such word as towards, it's toward. But you'd have to have the AP style guide to know that. And then it drives me crazy when people are like, yeah, so, I am going to be having a speech entitled blah, blah, blah. It's titled, not entitled. And the
yeah,
AP style guide, like those two things really latched on for
yeah,
me. But what people don't realize about what you do is, in fact, that it's a story that you're telling. And there's so much that goes behind what could be considered as a frenzy or creating a frenzy around something. And there's so much more to it than the glitz and glamour with the done product. So let's talk about your journey becoming a CEO and a business leader, and just tell us a little bit about, your journey along the way.
okay. And I love the fact you have the same experience as me. That's I always love talking to people who study communications and marketing and
Oh,
PR.
and I love doing crazy marketing things. And believe me,
Yay.
I
Yeah.
try to do those things with Ken, and he is not as much of a fan. So, we each have our place, but
Yeah.
like sometimes I'll just do something because I like to
Yeah.
be bold and crazy, and I know it works, but it's just not, for him.
No, and I thought you raised a really good point because we at Frenzy really, and no disrespect, I mean, Ken is an amazing individual, smart, but we want to work with the people who are prepared to go there,
Yeah.
the ones which are prepared to take a risk. And it's a certain type of, mentality, perspective. There's a lot there's a lot to think about, but those companies are the ones which are really exciting to work with because they trust in you as a partner. But my journey, so when I was at corporate, I managed about 12 agencies, and I'm so sorry, gosh,
Okay, you're a busy PR professional being tracked down by clients. We get
yeah, it's like not right now. I'm sorry, I thought I posted
it.
it. Then sometimes it's a way of, yeah. So I was managing 12 agencies, and I really got to see what was good and not so good, and what inspired me and what didn't about those agencies. And I always just felt a desire in my heart that I want to have an agency one day. It felt way too more than I could do, but you start off and you think I can do this, I can do this, but I put it off for many years. I had my two daughters, and I remember just my husband saying to me, like, "Are you going to go back to corporate life?" And I'm like, "No, because I want to be around my children, but I also really want to run a business." And he's like, "Okay." So he's like, "Well, then you better get going," because it's like, I'd bought in a great salary before, now there was nothing. So I
Right.
was just like, that was like, oh, okay, now he's right. I've got to actually do this. So I just remember literally like writing the business plan every time I put the children down to sleep. So I think I spent too long on the business plan because I don't know why. I just wanted it to be right. And then there's nothing right. And so I just got going, and I felt like I had the ability to be with my daughters, but also get my business started. And I was able to. I just had no sleep. That was the challenge for many years. Um, but there's just been so many kind of hurdles along the way. I mean, I'm on my fourth business partner with, but the best business partner I've ever had. I mean, I've had some challenges. Like my first business partner, he died of skin cancer, and it was the
Oh,
most
man.
devastating thing. My second business partner was my best friend, who wasn't my best friend for 7 years and is now back to being my best friend.
Mm.
It's brilliant. So never go into business with your best friend. The third business partner was very complicated. We won't talk about that. And the fourth one is incredible, Dave McMullen. And so it's just been, it's not ever like that. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
some businesses are like that. Mine has not been like that. There's been tons of learning. And it's also been very international. I started off in London, and I was really working, with companies based in London and looking to do stuff in the UK. And then I branched into working with companies which were more international, moved to Dubai, back to London, still running the agency whilst raising the children. And then 2013, we moved to Atlanta. And that was just a bit of a strange reason why we even came to Atlanta, but it worked out because I run a technology agency, and I initially thought, well, Atlanta is not tech. Like, why is this going to work for me? But I went to a Technology Association of Georgia event, and I literally pinched myself. I was like, there's so much technology.
Yeah,
I couldn't
for
believe
sure.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
like full
Even
tech.
in the burbs, we're tech from in town all the way up until the burbs.
Yes, 100%. You're right. And it's definitely not just an ITP thing at all. And so I called my husband and I was just like, oh my God, this feels like the place I want to launch Frenzy in the US. And so that's when I started. And it's been really, really, really good. And so it's just been a journey of learning, discovery, making bad decisions, making good decisions, and just always trying to get better. And also really focusing on, I think as business owners, you go broad at first and feel like, well, you can do all of these different things for all these different companies. And then you realize, no, to be an expert, I really need to focus on the market I understand, which is technology, which is enterprise technology. And so now that we've really focused on that and we create the frenzy around those type of clients, we are really building a name for ourselves.
And that's marketing 101, niche, 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 right? So we all know that running a business is hard. It sounds like you've had your share of ups and downs. Every business owner I interview on this podcast, and we're close to 100, we all make mistakes. Everybody's making mistakes here, but like, tell me something that you did really well.
Something that I did really well is, I suppose one main thing is that there's good and bad to this, I suppose, but I've just always been, the business is about, I mean, I am a representation of Frenzy. Like, so where does Frenzy start and end, and where does Sarah start and end? I mean, I do embody the brand. If I was to talk you through what our attributes are as an agency, they kind of are embodied around Dave and I. And I believe that is important because we are scaling, but we still have created a lot of structures and processes where Sarah and Dave are, this is who our clients get to be with as much as possible. So, I've never really wanted to create an agency where I got so big, where I didn't feel like I had I could actually reach out to a client anytime and talk to them. And so, I think
and a lot of people like that. I just want to pause and talk about that point for a minute, because a lot of business owners feel this pressure to have to scale and have to grow and have to get bigger, bigger, bigger. And there is this tiny business revolution that's sort of happening too, where people are trying to do less but have a more meaningful business or whatever it is. But I think it's really important that, I think it's great that you said, I just don't want to be that big. I want to be successful. I want to pay the bills. I want to serve my clients, but I don't want to necessarily have to go there just because I see everyone else do it.
No, and that's definitely not what we're building. We're also not so. There was a time when I would judge myself by the number of employees we have, and then you get to realize you should judge yourself more by the bottom line as
Yes.
well. Because you can, especially in this whole work-life home balance and changing workplace and culture and people, and W-2 employees aren't always the way to go anymore either. And so, just we're very flexible and agile to different best workplace practices for our team and for us. What we're focused on is doing a really exceptional job that creates a frenzy, like something where people can feel the difference when they work with us. That see, when we say we're going to bring a frenzy to the table, they can feel that energy from the things that we bring in. So that we're not just looking at things with an average eye. We're always saying, well, what is the frenzy in this?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're more focused on right now. And that's doing well for us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. How many employees do you have?
So we were about 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Like, how do you, keep your employees motivated and engaged in their work? So definitely this is like a good bit of those are probably going to be creative brains,
Mhm.
right? So they're not as business mind as maybe you are, your husband is. So how do you keep them engaged in their work?
First of all, by choosing clients we want to work with and turning away the ones we don't, which does happen quite a lot. There's nothing better than telling someone we're not the right fit. And our team appreciate that.
Mm,
Learned the hard way of what happens when you bring a wolf in the hen house and it can really interfere in a bad way. So working on meaningful business is probably the number one way that we motivate people. We also do all the right benefits, we pay the right salaries. We have a view of like, we try and be in the office 3 days a week, but if somebody wants to work from home, that's all good. We're not micromanaging anybody. Everyone knows their goals, everyone steps up as best as they can, or we sit down and we figure out how else we can support them. And so, it's again, I have experienced frenzy at a time where we did micromanage and
yeah,
it was horrible. I'm not,
it's hard.
yeah, and I'm not proud to say that was my business at one point in time, but it was my business. And so we've just,
But
again,
that's what makes you a great leader and CEO is acknowledging, hey, this was not done well then, and I made changes for that, because like even though there's so many of us out there running our own businesses, there isn't actually a playbook until you're running your own. And then you see sides of you didn't even know were there. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? So the fact that you can acknowledge, hey, well, out at that point, we shifted it, right? We made a shift.
yeah, we definitely made a shift. We had to. And it feels right. It's been feeling
Yeah,
right for a while now. Yeah.
that's good. That's a good place to be.
Hi there, this is Ken Paskins, the CEO of GCE Strategic Consulting. What's holding your company back? It's often blind spots in leadership, miscommunication, misaligned priorities, and untapped growth opportunities. GCE's 360 assessment provides crystal clear insights into your team's strengths and challenges. Then, one of our leaders will work with you to turn those insights into an action plan. Ready to build a stronger, aligned team that can execute against your vision? Learn more about our 360 assessment today.
What are the top things impacting your industry or right now? Like it could be positive or negative. I mean, obviously AI, I was talking about that, but what other things are out there?
It's interesting, and this plays well to frenzy, but it felt like during COVID, um, so a couple of things happened during COVID. We moved away from a lot of like insular paid media type transactional conversion marketing and invested a lot in storytelling, which was
Yes.
the area that I'm in mainly. And then so that was great at the time because that, the storytelling and the narrative and making people understand your brand's purpose, that was very important. And then we kind of after COVID, and then it became everything about conversions. Like, let's forget about the brand because now it's all about driving conversions because we have so many means of gathering data, so many means of reaching people in nanoseconds because of these different paid media platforms. Go, 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 go. And now what is happening is those brands which really did invest less in the brand and more in conversions they hit a pain point
Yeah.
where the brand was being misunderstood and now they're paying a price battle to win loyal customers. And so frenzy is actually about the integration of really good storytelling about the brand, but then the execution that makes people stop and react. And so I feel like we're moving into a better scenario where the brand narrative really does matter again, and that conversions is still important, but it's not everything. So
Yeah.
that's really good for us.
Have you, and I'm sure you've dealt with Donald Miller's story branding,
With what? Sorry?
Donald Miller story branding, his book.
No.
It's all about storytelling and
Okay.
branding your company around a story. And there's a hero and a villain and
Oh, yeah,
you
sorry.
know,
Yes. Yeah.
yes,
Luke
I'm
and I
sure
will
you know
know. Yeah, I just
it.
may not have known the name of that. I mean, yeah, we tout that whole Luke Skywalker type, who's your guide, who's your hero, and
Yes.
yeah, and I'm a big advocate for that. And it's simple, but so many brands don't, no disrespect, that they think they are the hero, when actually they're not the hero. The client is the hero. They're just the guide.
Yep.
Guide. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself investing resources for growth over the next year? What's ahead for your company?
We are investing really in good people, just really continuing to get really good quality people. We are, as a company, just investing more in our own marketing, in our own storytelling. And I know that's so overdone, that whole cobbler's shoes, but it's really true that marketing agencies just don't do a great job of their own marketing, which is just appalling. So again, just doing that, but also just a lot about like leadership development. Part of me wanting to actually, part of me going after the EO president-elect was actually because I want to be a better leader. And I also, EO has brought not just leadership training to me, but it's bringing leadership training to our executive teams too. And so it's about giving our team and ourselves the resources that we need to be exceptional leaders. And so there's a lot of focus on exceptional leadership growth within Frenzy, not just for the leadership team, for everybody in the company. And so that's one of my reasons why I'm so committed to EO, is because I know I've changed as a leader since I've been part of that company. And
Right.
I see the growth in me. I see the growth in our team. And so that's, just more leadership, more awareness around what's, just being more intuitive, leaning in more to conversations with our team, and building something where people come to work and it feels really enlightening to be here.
Yeah. One of the things I really remember was at the first EO meeting I attended with Ken. It was where Shawnee was being announced as the president. And, I talked to her offline and I said, what made you want to do this? And she's like, my whole life I've kind of said, not me. And in this scenario, I said, why not me? It's just one word, why? Not me, instead of not me, right?
Yeah.
But I do think EO is going to have like a great time with you, and you will bring a lot to them. So that's exciting. It's a huge, huge undertaking. We've loved being a part of EO. It's still fairly new for us, but I think for a CEO or visionary listening to this who maybe doesn't know about EO or doesn't know what it offers, that's something they could probably reach out to you about even.
Yes, definitely. I host the EO Atlanta podcast, which is where they get to tell the story better than I do, because I say to them, and I don't think I could ask, I think maybe I asked Ken at the time, but he was new, like, what is the ROI of EO to you? And I'm not talking monetary. I mean, like return on investment, and not like how many deals have you made? Like, what are you getting from it? And when I ask that question, literally, people don't know how to really articulate the impact it's had. Like, they become a bit breathless, like because it's significant. Honestly, it's like it will change the way you do business.
Yeah.
But and when I spoke to Ken, I loved it. He taught me about the 2x to 10x model, and I know that's definitely something you guys implement in your business. And that's just an example of what EO does. It's like EO allows other business owners to share insight and advice to each other, that we all grow together. And that's ultimately what EO is about. It's about how do we all grow and be better at what we do and learn from each other.
And so many of the people we interview on the podcast who are running companies, they feel alone because they are at the top and their employees don't feel that struggle. Their partners may not even feel that struggle. And so I think being around others who can relate to that struggle is helpful to know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So what is the best?
What's that? Point. I was in a clothing store the other day, actually buying this top, and
for our podcast, because you wanted to look amazing on it.
That's why. But again, this is an example where the lady running it's her store. It's a beautiful store. And I said to her, is this your business? Because I saw her photo on the front desk in an article. And she's like, yes, it is. And straight away, I could just feel her energy.
Yeah.
Like, she even said to me that, she feels depleted.
Yeah.
Like, it's like every day she gets up, she worries about the foot traffic in the store and blah,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and again, I don't want to walk around going, all the time, but it's like, and you can never force anything on anybody. But again, that's an example of just like, man, like you need help. And I feel for you right now because you do feel alone.
Yeah.
So again, that's part of the thing which ignites my spark around business and entrepreneurship, even beyond EO, is like getting together with people where you feel like you're united by this common goal of being a visionary and building something that hasn't been built before.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So if you had to do it all over again, speaking to a younger self or a less experienced self, what would your advice be?
Yes, I would have started 10, 15 years earlier, which is, I think, what a lot of people say. Although I met someone yesterday who did start in their 20s. So, and that doesn't always, do the best, but I would have started earlier. I would have believed in myself a bit more, I think. But hindsight is everything. I don't think I would change anything.
Really? That's great. Okay. So if somebody listening might need services that you provide and they want to take the next step with you, what should they do?
They should send me an email, Sarah with an H at Frenzy, FRENZY.agency. Really easy. And just tell me, let's get on a call. I'm very personable. I like to take time for other people because they take time for me. So yeah, and then we would just talk through like the pain points you're experiencing in your business around brand visibility, around customer engagement, around how to be more influential and all those things. So those are the things that I can help with.
Awesome. I do think that people lose sight, and especially during times like COVID, they lost sight of how important their brand was. And sometimes when you're building, and you put that to the back burner, it does affect the business. So if anybody out there is struggling with their brand recognition or wanting to get more recognition, then definitely give Sarah a call.
Yeah, I would love to have that conversation.
Thank you so much for being on the Shift Spotlight podcast and talking about the shifts that you've made in your own personal business along the way.
You're welcome, Winter, and thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks.